Hello, everyone, and welcome back to South Asian Artists in Conversation with South Asian Artists. So it's really been about a year since I last did these, and I really wanted to bring them back and just talk to sort of a variety of people about different topics. So yeah, welcome back and kicking off the first set of the new South Asian Artists in Conversation with South Asian Artists is a lovely Anjali Mehra, who is a movement director and a choreography. And we're going to be speaking a bit about her career, how she got into it, and then obviously focusing on a little bit about representation. So thank you so much for joining me today, Anjali. If you could just tell everyone a bit about yourself, that would be great to start it off.
Yes, well, you already introduced me really well, but yes, I'm Anjali Mehra, and I am currently a choreographer and a movement director, and actually soon to be co-directing, which is really exciting as well. I was a dancer for 20 years, and I always choreographed and I always did some movement directing interspersed in my dance career, but now I'm just solely focused on choreography and movement directing, and yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And what like styles of dance did you sort of start off in, and what styles do you like choreograph now?
Oh God, that's a good question. I trained in classical ballet, so I went to Central School of Ballet in London, which is in Farringdon, which is a brilliant school, and um, that that sorry, at Central you do classical dance and contemporary and some jazz, and it's a really sort of strict regime. And so yeah, I suppose the choreography that I have, that I generally make, is influenced by those styles. But as a choreographer, every time you do a different job, there's something very, very different about every single one, because they're based in a different place, based in a different time. The direction might be modern, it might be old fashioned, it might be historical. So every time you learn a new type of dance or a new type of movement or a new sort of way into the piece. So it's really malleable. That's the only way to describe it. I wouldn't say like my choreography is like this, and so you can only employ me if you want this kind of choreography. My job is to understand what the direction is, and the brief, and then create something to that.
Yeah.
But saying that, I do have like a bit of a style.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to, so at least it makes it sort of like authentic and unique, and you've got something to go by. Whereas like you may be confused if you just don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And how did what like inspired you to go into choreography and movement directing? Because I know you mentioned when we spoke that you were in the original cast of Bombay Dreams, and that was, I believe you said something that inspired it. So yeah, what inspired you?
That has had a massive inspiration on me in terms of style, and energy. It was the first time that I really had been in a room, full of other dancers and actors and singers like myself, and it was like this huge community, and the energy of the piece was really inspiring, because I'd come from quite a kind of, very classical background, and then this sort of freedom of expression and energy and articulation with hands, faces, eyes, has been a massive influence. So until now, and that was like years and years ago. Yeah, so I always wanted to do it. So even when I started entering choreography competitions when I was 12. So I never, I never entered the sort of dance ones, which all my friends were. I was going off and going, I want to create something, and so I think it was already in my psyche. I think I felt that it was a way of really bringing myself into something, and I think especially being probably the only South Asian dancer at all in the entire school, and sometimes in the entire room of an audition or in a company, I think that I felt that I knew that I would be able to bring something if I was choreographing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily being represented a lot in what I was doing, which is fine as well. But I think I was like, I need to make my own impact on this world.
And did that, like, say, being one of the only South Asian sort of dancers and choreographers in the room, did that make you feel like you wanted to show something different and represent something that no one else was doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because when I'm in a space, like, for example, something like the Rumi musical, you know, there, the influence of Middle Eastern, South Asian, like traditional dance and the style that I've come to love, which is really about expressing and articulating with hands a lot, hand gestures to tell stories and express emotions. That was very much, you know, aligned with what I do. um but I try to like get some of my flavor and influence into other art forms that doesn't necessarily, you know, like maybe it's in opera and the opera's, you know, not set in any of those places or any of those times, but um I try to add a bit of what I do into those spaces as well. um so that there's a like, oh, where's this come from, you know, they might go, oh yeah, I can see this Anjali Mehra, she's the choreographer,
Yeah, I see what
where
I mean.
that's coming from.
Yeah, from so you sort of like incorporate it in kind of each project that you do.
Yeah, as much as I can. I mean, there's some that you can't, like if it's very specific to,
Mm.
like for example, I was the movement director on a play at the Watermill about Spike Milligan, and it's very, you know, and so the movement there was very specific to that time in London and
Mm.
that story, which I also love doing. But sometimes it won't work, you know, and it wouldn't work in that scenario.
No.
But in another one, I can add it in.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned Rumi the musical. That actually brings me on to the next question. So what was like that whole experience like for you? Because if I'm correct, was that was it a MENA and South Asian
Yeah,
cast?
yeah.
Okay. So what was like the whole experience like, but also what was it like working with predominantly MENA and like South Asian cast, which is
Oh,
obviously very rare.
it was amazing. And I think that every single person in the room understood that it was a unique experience. And because of that, it was so special. There was just this massive sense of pride, especially because obviously Rumi is this iconic figure in the world and has such a significant influence on the Western world as well as the Eastern world. So I could feel that there was this, and for me as well, like I felt privileged to be part of telling that story. And we had these two amazing writers, Nadim Namam and Dana, and they, you know, they created all the music, and then Nadim actually played Rumi in it. But yes, the whole cast was either Middle Eastern, North African, or South Asian, and it was just this really beautiful mix of cultures, but that everybody was rooting for the same thing. And honestly, it was like, I'm not even exaggerating, it was one of the best experiences I've had in my life. Um, yeah, it was just so positive. Yeah.
Amazing. No, to be fair, I'm not surprised by you saying it was one of the best experiences, because it's whenever, like, when do we ever get to work with a predominantly MENA or South
Yeah.
Asian cast, and
Yeah.
it's never, and that was big because of Ruby the musical. It had to be that. So
Yeah.
it must have felt like you kind of had to go in, and you didn't, no one had to explain themselves, or
Yes. Yeah.
be like the only other person. Everyone kind of just the sense of like, oh, we
Yeah.
know, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was exactly that. And it was like the bond was immediate between everybody because, you know, everyone understood that this story was also really important. And the words, you know, from Rumi, it are words that we hear all the time and around us. And my dad, you know, he's a massive Rumi fan, and he sent me quotes. Like as soon as I said, "Oh, I'm doing this musical," he sent me quotes, and then I remember that, you know, he'd spoken quite a lot about him when I was young. So there was already an alignment there. But yeah, it was amazing because obviously I then sort of researched a little bit more about Middle Eastern dancing. I knew that I was going to bring in South Asian dancing into it, but there were so many similarities. So I just kind of meshed the two with some sort of very like modern contemporary dance, but again with loads and loads of gestural storytelling with the hands and the face, specifically to do with the words. And again bringing that South Asian influence, and then lots of like the rhythm from more kind of folk dancing from both regions. So it was so fun, and it was so energetic and wonderful, and everyone just loved it. And it was just, it was just one of those incredibly positive experiences. And I think that, you know, we need a lot more of that, not just about, you know, representing as performers or creative teams, but representing as actual stories, the stories from where we're all from. That's what's really important, I think.
No, definitely. And I think that's amazing that you got to incorporate all the different styles, like the classical and then the South Asian and MENA kind of styles, to sort of make it into a story. And it's sort of like bringing the two different cultures together in one kind of movement form. And I thought just another question, speaking on that. So what would you say like the main difference between choreography and movement directing is? Because I think movement directing, you would say it's more to do with storytelling, but obviously from your perspective, what would you say?
Yeah, it's quite a big question in our industry, but I think that choreography, how I look at it is, you know, when there are specific dance numbers. So for Rumi, you know, you have the big songs and you have these big dance numbers and everybody learns all these steps and we create them, and that's very clear that it's a big section of dance that everybody's rehearsed, and so that's when you know that's choreography. Movement directing is much more subtle because it's, you know, it's integrated into the story, into people's characters, into how people walk, how they move, but it's also, you know, used just as a term for if you're directing large groups of like chorus, for example, who might not necessarily be doing loads of dancing, but they've got to move specifically in a way that tells the story. So movement direction is more integrated, like actually like what you said, in the story and the character and the piece. And choreography is usually a set, much more of a set, but a lot of the time you're doing both.
I was gonna say,
I mean, you can't I mean, I'd never do a piece and not be a movement director on it. There sometimes isn't loads of big sections of choreography, but I'm always going to be directing movement whatever happens, because that's why I'm there.
Yeah. So is it sort of like, I guess, I mean, even with choreography, there's meaning behind the dance, but I guess when you're telling a story, there's more meaning behind it, and then I guess more connection to why you're making particular movements in certain parts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people picked up on in the reviews, funnily enough, with Rumi, is that they could really tell that the movement was telling the story and describing the words, and allowing, one reviewer said, like, it allowed the ensemble to tell the story, you know, not just from their singing but through the hand gestures and stuff. So I keep doing like
Amazing. Well, no, that must have been great feedback, knowing that you
because like, that's exactly what I was trying to do.
That was you. And you, to be fair, because you already said that Rumi was one of like the best experience of your life, my next question was going to be, what is the best like project you've worked on? But if that was it, I'm just going to sort of do that. What are some of the highlights on sort of like overall projects that you worked on?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as a dancer, I was really lucky. I had a really long career with Matthew Bourne's New Adventures. So I did some amazing shows as a dancer and toured around the world. And, you know, that's obviously also had a big influence on my sort of storytelling elements, because his work is very much about storytelling. But and Bombay Dreams, obviously, I mean, that changed my life. I met my husband. So that's been, I remember that really sort of shifting my focus away from just classical and contemporary dance, which I think was really helpful for me at such a young age, to sort of suddenly go like, bow, and then I married the two, so it was great. But as a choreographer, movement director, apart from Rumi, obviously, which was amazing, I'm most proud of a work I did in New York. It was with an amazing director called Richard Jones, and it was at the Park Avenue Armory. So it was literally in Park Avenue, and it is an armory. So it was like the size of a kind of hangar, like an airplane hangar. It was huge, and there was no wings or flies or anything. So all the cast had to be directed movement wise all the way, like it was like a mile of stage.
Oh wow. Oh my god.
And there are these huge moving structures, like as big as a house, moving around. So I had so much responsibility. I was choreographing the the set and the cast in one. So it was like
Oh
these
gosh.
massive, and then kind of stopwatches, knowing like how long it would take somebody to get from the side of stage, and timing it perfectly with the music and the text and everything. So, and it was in New York, you know, couldn't really get better than that. So that was an incredibly like life-changing experience. And I also really learned about the power of the ensemble, and that's what I get really excited about, as a group of people, and the impact that just small, subtle moves or looks of an eye can have on the whole piece. So that's really exciting.
When they're all working together.
Yeah, and it's, I think, you know, sometimes we forget, and, you know, I love that people are individuals, but I love the power of like what, you know, a group of people can say together. Yeah, so that's really exciting. And then recently, Daddy at the Almeida, which was written by Jeremy Harris, and that the reason why I loved that, I loved everybody in the cast, and again it was such a great mix of cultures, but it really pushed the boundaries of theatre. Yeah, I can't really say more than that, because yeah, you just have to go and see it next time it comes back. It's just brilliant as well.
Was that the most recent project?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And the one in New York, how many casts were involved in that? Was
it wasn't a massive cast. It was about 20, but then there were also crew who were, funnily enough, actors who were, you know, luckily, because then they really understood. So I had an amazing sort of group of, I mean, incredible, like big TV theatre actors over in New York, and then this like amazing crew, another crew of actors to sort of choreograph on. So yeah, it was really a really exciting time.
Yeah, and I guess it's something different working with sort of like you said, the big stage, and I guess there's so much to think about. It's not just sort of how you choreograph people to move the body, it's with the timing, and make sure, like you said, it all, because if one person's out of place, it all sort of ruin the whole thing. So making sure everyone's, you know, connected, doing the same thing, and the set and everything. So it must have been kind of a lot to focus on, as opposed to
it
just
is totally. And I think people forget that the movement is what brings together the lighting, the set, the people, the everything. It's so important for it, like you say, to get it right, you know, because you can spin like the everything can spin out of control if that isn't, you know, thought about properly, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And we're gonna just in all the conversations, obviously I like to touch a bit on representation. I'm really actually intrigued to see your response, and it might be a bit difficult to answer, but the next question is there a particular way that you've used either choreography or movement directing as a way of representation or inclusivity, or just ways that you've found to incorporate, you know, choreography and movement directing to?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked a little bit about it already. So that the influence of those styles, not just from doing Bombay Dreams, but I got taken a lot to sort of Bharatanatyam and Kathak performances when I was younger. I didn't train in that, unfortunately, but I ended up training in it during the pandemic. Because I was like, I wanted to do this for ages. I finally had the time. So I trained in Kathak, you know, as much as I could, basically. But it was brilliant to then bring a sort of almost classical structure, which I sort of understood, like the clarity of it. And then what I did was I actually now always use Kathak and the rhythms of the feet and the hands and the what's it when you're coordination of it in all sort of warm-ups or classes that I teach of actors. So I was teaching at Lambda and Arts Ed during the pandemic, and then every time I now get a group of actors in a show, like it's often in my warm-ups. I'll often have a Bollywood sort of style warm-up or routine, so that they can hear the music and they can understand the rhythm and the energy of it all. So, and I often try and give like quite contrasting things, like quite kind of traditional drum beats, and then I'll bring in much more high energy sort of Bollywood music, and then something much more beautiful lyric, much more classical Indian, and try to and warm up people in that way. So even if the show has nothing to do with it, they've had something from my culture in their day. if I'm not able to then put it into the choreography necessary, if it's not completely congruent, sometimes I can't, do that. But if I can, I always put my South Asian flair into my choreography as much as I can. Yeah.
I think that's no, go ahead.
Yeah, and then in terms of like representation of people, I was commissioned to make a film, and I decided to do a film about three women and at three different stages in their lives, and it was based on a Sylvia Plath poem. And the middle, there was a younger, a middle, and an older one. And the middle one, I really wanted to represent me. I really wanted to find a South Asian dancer that was sort of ballet and contemporary trained. I literally couldn't find one. I'm not saying that there weren't any, but I couldn't find one easily, and I couldn't find one who was similar to my age group, and I couldn't find someone who was similar to my training. And I realized, oh my god, we're really thin on the ground in this specific art form. So that's when I started to realize, okay, where I'm coming from, I've got an ability to bring that representation up. So every time now that I have the chance to cast people, so there's two projects coming up. I've already kind of connected with my South Asian community of performers, and I'm already putting them forward. So sometimes they're not quite right. There's really high representation, I think, in actors and more in musical theatre, but in classical dance and contemporary, not very much at all. So I really love, I'd love to be part of moving that forward and bringing that up and bringing that representation up and encouraging dancers to go in that direction as well, because I would use them all.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really interesting, saying that you struggle to find them, because a lot of South Asian dancers predominantly that I've seen have done Bollywood, and I know of like over 50 South Asian Bollywood dancers, and there's so many Bollywood dance companies in the UK. But it's actually really interesting. I've not actually come across myself many South Asian dancers who do the more classical side, a little bit away from that. So it's interesting that you said that there's not actually that many out there, and it's good that you try and encourage that when you can, because there is that stereotype, oh, you should do Bollywood, but it's like, yeah, but you want to do other classical styles.
Yeah, and exactly, and I think that it's now everybody is mixing styles and influences, and that's definitely where I'm going, and I want to go. And I'd love to be able to pull upon a cohort of dancers that were from South Asian backgrounds that could do that. And there are loads of dancers, I'm not saying that, but it's difficult to find ones that are trained in classical ballet, contemporary, and then also have the influence of the Indian classical dancers. That would be ideal. Maybe I just need to start an academy or something.
I know, just one where it's like traditional mesh with classical. I think that would be.
I'd love that. I'd really love that.
I feel like I could see a lot of like the Bollywood and Gothic dancers wanting to do a little bit of classical style, because then it would, and again, like I said before, that's a way of getting the sort of the two cultures, sort of the British, the Indian side, in a way of dance, as opposed to just sort of using actors. I think you should do that. I think
I know. Now I'm not just talking about it. I'm like, maybe this is where the gap in the market is.
Yeah.
Because I also think, like, nowadays there's such there's a rush of people and the whole institutions trying to represent more culture. So it's amazing for me at quite a kind of midway through my career to suddenly experience that, and to know that suddenly having a South Asian background and influence is a positive thing. And I'm not saying that it was ever a negative thing, but it wasn't a selling point for me, back in when I first started out. It was very much like, does she fit into the white stories? No. Does she fit into the completely Indian stories? No. And so I felt very much like, there wasn't a place. So it's really, really amazing now for me to know that I can, pull upon everything, and that's very accepted now, and people are encouraging it. And so, I feel like my career is like beginning now,
sure.
22 years later. So yeah, it feels like a great play. It feels like a brilliant time to be here, but there's so much more representation to be had. For us, I think, you know, we're a big part of the cultural sort of landscape of England, and I think there could be more to be done, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing after 20 years that you're still discovering so many new things. And like you said, it's a beginning, and I think there is that demand and gap in the market for a company that, like you said, brings the two together. And following on from what you were saying about representation, why would you say that it's important for us as South Asian creatives to champion each other, and also champion each other's successes?
I mean, I think it's really important, and it's funny because whenever I meet, like I met another choreographer just online actually, called Sunny, who's amazing, and we were both doing auditions for a National Youth Music Theatre over lockdown. So we were doing these like intense taking the auditions. So she would do a routine and I would do a routine, and then we'd mark the kids who were like dancing around in the living rooms, and we like bonded straight away because we were both half Indian. We were like. And then now we just completely support each other in our careers. We've kept in touch, and like I put her forward if I know that I can't do something. And I think now my first point of call, hopefully, is someone that I feel like needs to be represented, that I feel also represents me, and my place in this industry and in the world and everything. So. Yeah, I think, we have to promote each other because there's, like I said, I think we could be shouting a little bit louder still, I think we'll be going, hello, we're here. I mean, I'm actually going to see Father and the Assassin tonight.
Oh, you say that tonight?
At the National, and a few people that were in Bombay Dreams are in that, so it'll be a little bit of a reunion.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, things like that, it's really exciting to see those stories
are being told. And again, predominantly South Asian cast. I mean, it's just very very rare to get those. And yeah, I've heard really good things, and I'm hoping to go in a couple of weeks. So let me know how it is.
Oh, I will.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like you were saying, it's so important that we champion each other, and like you said, the friend that you found, that you were sort of putting her up for stuff that you can do, because I think if the industry, I mean, there has been a lot of progress. I am seeing so many more of our faces out there, theatres, like you said, Father and the Assassin, screens everywhere, but obviously there's still a massive way to go. And a lot of the time I always say, if the industry isn't giving us the opportunities, then no one else is going to. And I think it's important that we are the ones giving each other the opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. If we feel like, there isn't loads of places for us to go, then we have to club together and make those things happen. I mean, there's an amazing guy actually called Ben Armstrong, who was in the Rumi cast, and he's always he's always putting on concerts of South Asian artists or Manasa artists, and it's great. He just went, right, there's not enough of this, and it's people like that, and it's activities like that are just going to make us grow. And also just we need to be inspiring the next generation of people. We need to be saying, you are here and there will be a place for you if you train and you get out into this world. There are jobs for you, and you're wanted and you're needed.
Yeah. I think yeah, sometimes we forget a lot of the work we're doing now, it is for future generations to come, because I'm sure 20 years ago people weren't really putting each other up for stuff. It was just sort of waiting for the industry. But I think, like you said, with what Ben's doing, people are now finding different ways where we don't have to go through traditional ways of getting jobs. It's our own unique ways, and it's like, why not use the people around you? If you can't do something, then be like, oh, I can't do it, I'll put you up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
support each other.
Yeah, definitely. Because recently I'm part of this sort of South Asian group chat, and one guy just put out, this thing in Leicester, they're looking for, it wasn't South Asian actors but actors in general, and I got a job through that. And I'm just like, that's so amazing that just a little post like that, it can lead you on to so many other things. And I think if we continue to do more things like that, then we are going to be seeing each other's faces.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a really Irvin Iqbal. Have you heard of him?
Oh yeah, yeah, I've
He's
been meaning to interview him, but and he's so I mean it's so good because he's so busy, always working. But
he's
once
always
we finish
busy.
this, and we're like, Irvin, we need to have a
Yeah,
chat.
you need to, because he's been great for all that kind of
Mm,
stuff. He's been a really good voice.
yeah, for sure.
And he was in Bombay Dreams, but now is in The Father and the Assassin. And he actually created this group on Facebook. So I mean, that's where I get mainly my community of
Oh no way.
performers from that. And they're, you know, there's all different sort of actors, singers, musical theatre, and we're all in this, you know, Facebook Messenger group. And so
Okay.
everyone's keeping each other in touch with things that are going on. And yeah, you should be in that.
Yeah, I know. I'll ask him because we've
Yeah,
got a WhatsApp. There's a WhatsApp. I think that's mainly for actors. So I'll ask. Yeah, I'll ask
this
him
is a
that.
mix. Yeah, and it's quite nice because then it's like, you know, there's me as a choreographer person, and then there's singers,
Mm.
there's dancers, and there's actors and directors, you know, so it's a nice
Okay.
lots of different, but it's great because, you know, he's constantly starting conversations in there about, you know, especially if shows have done announcements and he doesn't feel like there's enough representation, so it kind of keeps everybody aware of what's going on, which I think is brilliant. And yeah,
And that's amazing because I think sometimes we often struggle to find those safe spaces where we can speak openly about,
yeah,
you know, the struggles, because a lot of the time people don't want to post about it due to professionalism, but it's great with these groups, everyone is going to feel quite similarly and feel open to be able to speak to that. So yeah, I think things like that are amazing. And yeah, like you said, because I know the one that I'm part is mainly actors, but sometimes actors need dancers need singers, vice versa. So
get on to Irvin. I'm sure he'll
yeah.
he'll add you.
I'll speak to him about it. Cool. Yeah, that like kind of brings us to sort of the end of the main part of the interview. I think we've covered quite a lot, which I'm
Yeah, we
really
did.
happy about. Like it's only been half an hour, and I feel like we've spoken
I
about
know, we did.
so many
Speedy.
different things. No, thank you so much for that. We're gonna just do a couple of like quick fun fire round questions. Yeah, so the first one is, what is your favorite pizza topping?
Artichokes.
Artichokes.
Mm.
Interesting. I've not had that before.
Oh, it's
Cool.
really good.
Really cool. I would say I like mushrooms. Mushrooms are like
Mushrooms and artichokes, the combination.
yeah. Pineapple. Wait, this is not part of it. I'm going to chuck on pineapple on pizza. No, yes.
No.
Yeah. So my brother, we were getting Domino's the other day, and he wanted extra pineapple, and I was like, why? Why are you doing that?
No, definitely not.
No. What is the favorite country that you visited?
Oh gosh. I mean, I wouldn't say favorite, but in terms of like the experience of visiting it is Japan. Just because I feel like it's just there's so much to it. It's got, you know, the kind of madness of the technology and
Yeah.
the modern, and then it's got the other extreme of like really peaceful Zen, you know, places to sort of meditate and stuff. So you feel like you're constantly going through the two extremes of being like overly stimulated to really calm. And there's something, so it's not necessarily my favorite place in the whole world. I actually don't know where that is, but it's a really exciting place to visit because of that. You're just like, whoa.
So much going on. Yeah, that's so. I've had conversations about where people want to go, and so many people have mentioned Japan recently. So I'm assuming that's why, because there's just so many different things going on.
Yeah, it's just it's go just
Yeah,
go. You'll know
cool.
what I mean.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
You gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah. Do you have any hidden talents or party tricks? It's fine if you don't, because I don't. But do you have any? I'm not going to make sure you, but do you?
Hidden talents. I mean, I play the piano. That's not really a hidden talent. But I can always do that solitaire game. You know, the one with the marble. And I can always finish with the one in the middle. I've always been able to do it since I was about 10, and I've never forgotten it. That's literally not very exciting.
No, I mean, I don't think I had any, to be fair. So that's a skill that
it's a really nerdy one.
No, but
it's quite nerdy.
Most party tricks are like that, anyways. They're quite like unique and just like random.
Random, very random.
Yeah. Morning or evening?
Before a baby, definitely night owl, but now I love early mornings. She's up at sort of 5:30, so like it's early nights and bright mornings. And actually, I really love it now. I really love,
Mm.
you know, sometimes I look at my watch and I've done so much and it's only like 10 o'clock and I'm like, wow, it feels really exciting. And then you can just wind down, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think those are the best. Like when I've had a lie, I'm just like, I prefer evening, but when I've had a lie, I'm just like, right, it's now 1 o'clock, nothing. But when you get stuff like you said done before 10 or 12, you just feel like, wow, you can do
It's
so much.
amazing.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
Cool. Final one. This I ask this to everyone. What would you give? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I'd probably say not to worry about doing it wrong. I think that I was quite a kind of like high achiever, which definitely came from having an Indian dad, which is brilliant because it means that I was always striving. But I felt like I was always striving to be the very best at whatever I was doing, which is amazing. But I think what that the negative side of that is that I felt like I never could go wrong and I could never fail. And sometimes in the industry that we're in, especially creating something, it's important to know that you can fail before you find it, or you can go wrong before you go right, or you can go on a journey where that's not the right way and then find it, and you don't have to know it immediately and get it all exactly right straight away. And that's been a massive part of my sort of brain struggle sometimes, is just to go like, allow yourself to go wrong before you go right, instead of having to land on everything brilliantly the first time. So that would be my advice, is just to allow yourself to find it, go wrong, fail, it's okay.
Yeah, and I think especially like in an industry where it's everyone tries to be such a perfectionist, and I think that's partly due to so much competition. You want to be the best of the best, always get it right, just so you look good and people want to work with you. But it's like no one can get it right all of the time.
No.
Otherwise,
And also your first, it's great to go with your instincts, but sometimes the first thing you decide isn't the right thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have to allow yourself to go, that's okay, I'm going to try something else, and I think that's a really important, the element of play is really important in theatre, isn't it? Not like, oh, we're just going to play games, but I mean the element to go like, I will play around something that I don't necessarily feel comfortable with because it's not the thing that I'm best at, but maybe I'll find something more interesting because of it.
Yeah, and it allows to like improve. And also I think with the element of play, you can experiment with what works and what doesn't. And you never know, something might not work for a project. You're like, do you know what, I'll put that in the bag, I'll use it for something else. And you're like, oh, that does work. So
yeah, exactly.
Amazing. No, I think that's really, really great to end on, guys. Just allow yourselves to fail and then you'll think of better ideas in the future. Amazing. Wow, that time has gone quick. It's only been 40 minutes. Great. Well, no, it's been, as I said, we've spoken about so much. And thank you so much, Anjali, for chatting with me today. Yeah, we've got some exciting people coming up. So I'll be making announcements of who we've got up next. And yeah, really excited to get these conversations going again, because I think they're really, really important to be had. And I don't see them happening enough. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Anjali.
Thank you.